think, act, and prosper. You are now tuned into the Money Level Show.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Money Level Show, where we think, act, and prosper. This channel focuses on changing financial trajectories and building legacies. I'm your host, Daryl Thomas, and today you are in for a treat. You are receiving exclusive content from the New Orleans Investment Conference. I had the opportunity of interviewing multiple experts within their respective field in the finance and resource sector. So be sure to hit the subscribe button. Take a look at this statistic. Over 91% of people that have watched my channel over its lifetime have not subscribed. So hitting the subscribe button only takes a second, and it is free to you. And for me, when I put out this content, it costs me money and time. So I hope that you all understand that and hope that you consider hitting the subscribe button. So without further ado, let's get to the interview. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Money Level Show, where we think, act, and prosper. Today, we are at the New Orleans Investment Conference. I am here with Brent Cook. I did not know who Brent Cook was, and then just a lot of the people that I follow, a lot of the people that I know were just like, hey, you need to know this guy. So, you know, it's good having dinner the other night and learn that you're one of the most, one of the well-known geologists in the space. And I mean, and you just have a history of, obviously working with Rick Rule, working with a lot of different companies, and then you have a newsletter that you help with. Remind me of the guy's name again.
Joe Mazumdar. It's Exploration Insights.
Yep, Exploration Insights. And so, I'm looking forward to just having a conversation today and just hearing your perspective on different things. So thank you for being here.
Sounds good. Look forward to it.
Yeah, so yesterday in your presentation, you talked about climate change, and I've heard Robert Friedland talk about this, and he presented it in such a way like this is real. There's always a lot of misinformation. Everyone thinks that they're scientists. A lot of people think that they're geologists and such. And so, how real is this climate change narrative, and what does this mean for the world?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I just talk about geology and rocks and mining and that sort of thing at this show, but this is a very, let's just call it a right-wing show, and a lot of the people in the audience are climate science deniers, really. So that's why I wanted to throw this out there. Just the facts, no politics, nothing, just the facts. So yeah, it's real. It's happening. We're doing it. It's anthropogenic, and it's going to change the climate and going to change a lot of things for, my kids and my grandkids, and it's an issue, and a lot of heat is energy, right? And energy is drives the weather. So the weather is just energy being moved around the globe. And the more energy, the more intense the storms and such are going to be. So we're seeing more intense storms. We're seeing a change in climate patterns, and that's going to affect agriculture, environment, people, etc. And it's going to cause troubles. And so we need to be ready for that. And what they're, the big push is going to be trillions of dollars spent over the next 25 years on decarbonization, electrification. And that's going to take a lot more metal than we have lined up to produce. So that's kind of where I focused it in on.
Mm-hmm. So with climate change, pretty much it's, global warming. I looked at some of the statistics on, I think NASA did some statistics on like the temperature of the ocean water and how it's increased over the last 100 years or whatnot. With that, it seems like there's a lot of implications for, if you look at, drinking water, for example, we get fresh water from rain and rivers and such. And then we have issues of like the Colorado River that's been hugely depleted. We were talking about I think it was you and I were talking about the Mississippi River and how salt water is coming into the Mississippi River and such. And so, it seems like there's some huge implications for future generations to have to deal with.
For sure. It's all interconnected. The whole weather patterns, the earth, everything is interconnected, and it's a very delicate balance. And that balance is being knocked out of, it's not happening more. You mentioned the Mississippi River. So there's not enough rain upstream, so the ocean water is moving up into the river, and that's killing off the fishing industry, and is, people living down there no longer have fresh water. Amazon River right now is in a severe drought. I mean, you can pull up pictures on Google, and you can see that there's, whole towns have to walk now a mile to get down to the river. They used to have boats and go out fishing from there. This is happening. You look at that storm that just hit Acapulco. That went from a tropical storm to a Cat 5 in 12 hours and just wiped out Acapulco. Right now there's a storm whacking into England and France that is the lowest pressure recorded in a storm. It's just, it's changing. It's going to impact everything. The Colorado River. I live in Utah. If we didn't have last winter's over average snowfall, we may not have been able to run Glen Canyon Dam for electricity. It's serious, man.
That's very concerning. And so, and with that, I mean, obviously, the world population continues to grow. We've increased 2-3 billion people in the last 30 years or something like that. Like it's and we're growing at a fast rate. And so that's more drawdowns on resources. Obviously, natural resources aren't infinite, and so it seems like it's inevitable that there's going to have to be investment into these clean energy metals, and for that to help with the global warming situation.
Yeah, I mean, it's debatable whether it's too late or not, but certainly anything we can do to reduce the CO2 in the atmosphere has got to be a positive. I don't know if we can solve it right now. We've kind of missed our opportunity. I think back in 1980, was it, that Gore came out with that movie, and it didn't stick. But still, whatever we can do to decrease the carbon in the atmosphere is going to be really important, and that's going to take a lot of new technologies, and that's going to take a lot of metals, rare earth metals, copper, nickel, that sort of thing. We're going to need a lot more of that.
Yeah, and it seems like a good step was for governments around the world to, put in their plans and policies of, their transition, but it doesn't seem like it's feasible. When you see 2030 electric cars, but it takes 20-25 years to start a copper mine. It's so like the math isn't adding up there with government policy and their expectations versus like what we're seeing with the investment into the commodity sector.
No, for sure. It does take a long time to permit a mine, and I think a lot of people, especially in the Western world, if you will, they've got this attitude that mines are bad. Yet, if you look around this room, or you're at home around that room, almost everything there except air is somehow connected to a metal. Farmers got to, they use the tractors and the truck to get the apple to your house, and air conditioning. It's all metals. People don't realize that we've got to get them from somewhere, and the technology and such that's been developed over the past 25 years or so, mines are not necessarily dirty. They're not polluting. I would say that, I got a place in San Diego. It's all high-tech stuff. I'll bet you the drainage from their parking lots into the river is probably more polluted than in any mine in the U.S.
Wow, that's very that's a good picture you painted. What metals are you? What resources are you bullish on, or that you see like, okay, these have to play a critical role? I mean, there's a lot of them, but which ones would you say that you mostly focus on for the future?
I think for electrification, the number one metal we need is copper. And so that's where I'm focusing some on. I think given the time lag, as you mentioned, from discovery of a copper deposit put in production, 10 to 20 years, that's going to be a real problem. If I find a deposit tomorrow, you're not going to get the copper for 20 years or 15 years. So copper is probably the main one. I think rare earths that go into batteries and magnets and that sort of thing, they're almost exclusively coming out of China. And there's a big push in the US, Canada, et cetera, to source those from someplace secure, if you will. So if you can find a rare earth deposit in Brazil, which is where I think a lot of them are, that's going to be important. So rare earths for sure. Nickel, again, nickel's an important metal for the future. And I like gold a lot. I think right now we're looking at the very beginning of a bull market in gold. And so I like gold a lot just because of all the chaos and everything going on in the world.
Yes, it's a hedge against crisis. I mean, when you see
exactly.
when you see, obviously the purchasing power of the dollar decline in gold increasing, or at least the dollar falling against gold over time. But like every chart that I see of gold, like it correlates with a crisis. Like when you see these spikes up, like even in the last 3 years, from the pandemic to Russia, Ukraine. To the banking crisis, to Israel, Hamas, like you see the price of gold just shoot up based off of, world crisis.
Yeah, those are, in a sense, they're temporary, but the underlying push is that a lot of these countries are reducing their dollar reserve as a reserve currency, and getting into gold. So you're not seeing the retail buy a lot of gold yet, but you're seeing various central banks around the world starting to accumulate gold. And that's what's really going to drive it, I think.
So I just want to shoot off some metals. I mean, you're a geologist. You run across a lot of metals. This is my opportunity. So what's your take on uranium?
I think nuclear power should be where we're going to get a lot of this clean energy. It's easy, it's simple, we understand it, and it's safe. I mean, I don't know how many people died from nuclear accidents. If you exclude the Chernobyl, there have been hardly any. So it's safe, I think. So uranium for sure.
About vanadium?
Not so much.
Okay, gotcha. Lithium?
Yes, lithium's key to the battery technology. There's a lot of lithium in the world, and I think we've seen the lithium price halve over the past year and a half or so, haven't we? But yeah, long-term lithium's a good one.
Good one, okay. What's your take on silver?
Silver's the poor man's gold, and I'm not a big silver bug. I mean, why own the poor man's gold if you can own the real stuff? Most silver, 75% of silver production comes as a byproduct out of lead, zinc, copper mines. But yeah, if you can find a pure silver deposit, that's very valuable.
That's good. Platinum group metals, we saw, rhodium is down to 4,000 an ounce, palladium down to 1,000, 1,100 an ounce, platinum 900 an ounce. These metals were a lot higher a couple years ago. What's your take there?
I think they're good deposits to own because, again, they're mostly sourced out of Russia, China, South Africa. So if you can find them in Australia or Brazil, someplace where they're at, Canada, that's a good thing to have. Again, it's this trade policy. We're sort of moving into more secular kind of trading pattern. We want to trade with companies or countries that we had trade partnerships with or agreements with, and that we can trust to supply the stuff we need.
That's good. Yeah, those are all the metals that are fresh in my head, and so appreciate you even just sharing that. I did have some kind of concerns about the platinum group metals. I mean, obviously you have the electric vehicle. Like we need electric vehicles, but then like there's issues with how many metals we got, and so there's probably going to be more combustion engines. So yeah, the platinum group metals, I feel like, I don't have a clear conviction one way or the other. I mean, right now the price is cheap and normally I will buy, while it's cheap. But it's like also I want to have like some type of certainty or a type of thesis of like why it's going to go higher in the future.
Yeah. I think you're right there. There's no clear catalyst that I can see either. I think, there's just, except that we need it from certain countries, not other countries. But yeah, in terms of a catalyst, I think you're spot on there. I don't see an immediate catalyst.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. So I appreciate you coming on. Like, where can people find more about your writings and just some of your research?
Yeah, well, you can Google me. I've got a number of stuff on YouTube, so Google me there. And Joe Mazumder's explorationinsights.com. He writes a newsletter about what he's actually doing with his money. And I think that's a worthwhile place. Lots of good information there. And I've also got a Twitter handle, Brent Cook, Geo, G-E-O, where I go talk about things like global warming and mining.
Yeah, nice. So yesterday you did give a couple of 3 stock picks, and so what are some of the things that you're looking for in a company? Before we wrap up, I gotta get this. What are some things you're looking for in the company?
I think the odds of success from taking a prospect, an idea basically, to a mine are extremely low, and I think that's in a lot of businesses. So I'm looking for smart people that understand what they're looking for. And by that I mean understand how, the tons and the grade and what the likely economics are going to be behind building a mine if they're successful in finding it. And then it's got to be high quality. It's got to be high margin, because I don't invest in a junior, exploration company because they're going to build a mine. I do it because they're going to find something so good that someone's going to buy them and they don't have to buy a mine. Last thing I want to do is build a mine. That's a pain in the ass, man. It takes a lot of time, money, yada, yada, yada. So that's sort of what I'm looking at, is large enough deposits at good enough grade that someone's going to buy them.
Mm-hmm. That's good. And are there any particular places where you're most favorable as far as where companies are located?
Not particularly. I mean, there's obvious places I'm going to avoid, like Venezuela, California, some African countries, but Scandinavia is good, Nevada's good, Canada's good, Australia, most of South America. Yeah, that's sort of where I focused.
Mm-hmm. That's good.
So kind of all over the world. I've been to something like 70 countries looking at projects. Mm-hmm. So I've seen a bit.
Yeah. That's good. And I think you shared a story. It took you an hour to determine that a project wasn't.
Yeah, I do a lot of field visits, or I have, and that's key, especially in early stage stuff. And Joe's always on the road. I'm a little bit less so now because I've got other things I want to do. But yeah, generally when I go to a project, within an hour or two, I can tell if it's worthwhile. Mm-hmm. I shouldn't say that. I can tell if it's no good.
Yeah.
But determining if it's good takes much more time. Mm-hmm. But yeah, you can knock them off pretty quickly. When you get there, go, this ain't gonna work. This is the bottom of a canyon. There's a river that goes through it. Or I remember going to one place in Colombia, and there's a beautiful little white church sitting on top of what they think they're gonna build a mine, and it ain't gonna work, man.
Definitely. What would you say was the most intriguing visit that you've done of an area was where maybe you saw like a lot of gold, or you like, okay, yeah, this is...
Geez, there's been a few. I remember in Armenia, a company had made a discovery, it looked like, and the guy that found it, Tim Coughlin, excellent geologist, he's now with Gold Road, and he just by accident, stopped on the side of the road, taking a leak, looked up the hill, saw all this alteration. So they went and found a gold deposit. We went and looked at that. That was pretty interesting. I remember when I first joined up with Rick Roll, I knew nothing about the financial side of stuff. I just knew geology. And I went down and looked at a project in Mexico that they owned a lot of. And I'm down there digging around, looking at stuff, trying to figure out what's going on. And there's about 8 other analysts up there on the hill. They didn't want to go down there. They just wanted to get back to town to go out drinking and stuff. So they were all upset with me to get down there and doing all this. But I came back to Rick's office and get a slide presentation. This is what I saw, yada, yada, yada. And about halfway through the presentation, all the brokers left. And I'm thinking, well, there goes that job. And it turns out they all left to sell the stock.
Oh, wow.
So, I just told them what I saw, and it wasn't what they had been led to believe.
Dang, yeah, that's hey, you saved the day for some people.
Yeah, that stock there at the time the stock was selling at like $14, and eventually it got down to $3. At which point we started buying it because again, we knew it was worth more than $3, but we knew it wasn't worth 14. So yeah,
that's good, man. Tricks of the trade, man. Well, appreciate you, Brent, for coming on. Thank you for spending your time with us.
Yeah, it's nice to meet you, man.
Yeah, you too.